mainly we hear about Timor either through the news or in documentaries, and I think the story being told in film form is direct correlation to Timorese people, because we are essentially storytellers. Our language is actually an oral language, so our history is actually an oral history. So it's not a thing that's recorded in books. So I think the film is a really important way for people to know about it.
3, 5, 2, take 1.
Marker. Marker.
A and B.
And set. Action!
As a feature film maker, not a documentary maker, I've always had a great interest in how works of fiction can explore our history in a way that really cuts right to the bone of the human condition.
Savages!
Rob's involvement and his insistence on authenticity was very important, I think, and his feeling for it, the fact that he wanted it to be a story about what happened to the East Timorese people as well as what happened to 5 journalists, which was just, a pivotal event in the fate of the rest of the country. His complete commitment to telling that story was inspirational, really.
It is a curious thing dealing with real historic events in the context of a work of fiction. The issue of whether the film will be depicted as fiction versus truth is always one that you grapple with as a feature filmmaker, not a documentary maker. And you dramatise events within any film to try and make the film as a piece of cinema work in a compelling way. But there were a couple of fundamental things that we decided not to fictionalise, and they were the executions of the Balibo 5 and the invasion of Dili in December 1975 and the massacre that happened on the wharf. And we were lucky that we had documents available to us to help us create those events. I think you're always in danger as a filmmaker of being attacked for the more fictional elements within any film. And I know it's the challenge that feature filmmakers have always had in dealing with historic events. And so the coronial report became part of the basis of how we actually staged and recreated those executions. So I think history can't dispute those two events.
Obviously the boys have learned how to use their props very well.
Well, the reason we're loading this up now is because we decided that it didn't make sense for us to load in the script. It says they load their film cans into a crack in the wall, but they wouldn't have had time to do that. So what we're saying is that they basically just tore their mags off, which is actually more of a desperate thing to do, and stick the mags into the wall instead. People that see the film want to know. They want to know what happened. When I talk to people about East Timor and the Balibo 5, after 30, something years of a cover-up, the water has been muddied. The people that have covered it up, the governments that have covered it up, have helped muddy the water to the point where people don't quite know what happened.
Someone has to talk to him, right? Someone has to talk to him.
People still believe that they were killed in Crossfire. There's still bits of misinformation, So I felt responsible as a filmmaker. This is the first feature film made in that country about this story. Bang, here it is. This is what happened. And it is confronting and it is tough, but that's kind of our obligation. Balibo, it's a war film. It's got a thriller dimension to it, but it falls very clearly into a whole genre of war films that have explored, real historic events. I think these are films that, within the history of cinema, people have loved seeing.
My people have heard of your quest to discover the fate of your comrades.
What we've tried to make is a political thriller. A lot of people have no idea, first of all, where Timor was. Most people who are seeing this were not, were even born after the event. Many journalists I've spoken to were born after the event. So it really is that we have to set up a situation where people will become involved in it as a story.
They want the truth to be known. Witnesses have come forward. I have brought 3 of them to speak with you to help you tell your story. Thank you.
We'd seen a lot of the footage from Channel 7 and stuff, so to actually be standing in exactly the same spot that these guys were doing the report from
And action!
just elevated everything to the reality, heightened the reality. It felt like we weren't making a film. It felt like we were portraying, telling this story or replaying, showing the world what happened in these certain spots.
Cutting. Okay, that's all good.
I had my iPod with me. This is how technology is affecting acting even. And I took my iPod into the Timorese jungles and I had a video footage on it of Greg's original piece. So I was able to watch it just before we did that take to get his vocal patterns and to get various nuances that he had in the speech.
Something happened here last night which moved us very deeply.
The cinematographer was also able to match the same time that the original footage zoomed in onto my face. We were able to replicate it in the film as well, which gives it incredible gravity and makes it a lot realer and more believable.
There was a moment in the 400-year-old Portuguese fort in Balibo where the young Balibo 5 actors were filming the footage that we know that the young guys actually filmed and died because they filmed. You know, there was just something about that moment of telling a historic event in the real place that probably, for me, is about as significant as it gets as a filmmaker. You know, I would hope that Balibo, even though it's a film about the specifics of what happened in East Timor in '75, actually speaks to the bigger issue of why it is that we continue to commit terrible atrocities against each other.
The Timorese who were playing as extras became very emotional, and it was very. It was hard not to cry watching the scene. And when it finished, one of the Timorese women came up to me and she said, "Now the world will know what happened to us." And if that is a result of the film, I think that will be a very worthy outcome.